Welcome back to Behind the Tab, a hospitality-focused podcast produced by GoTab. In today's episode, we are joined by Josh Goodman, founder and CEO of PourMyBev, a leader in self-pour technology and experiences. Josh will be leading a panel at the Future of Food Halls conference set for April 15th in Minneapolis at the Market at Malcolm Yards. To find out more information on that event, visit futurefoodhalls.com. In this episode, Josh will shed light on his experience in hospitality, the unique experiences he's been able to be a part of in a variety of concepts, and provide a sneak peek at some of the topics he will hope to tackle during the Future of Food Halls event. Enjoy. All right, welcome back to a very special edition of Behind the Tab. I am your host today, Adam Howe, Director of Product Enablement here at GoTab. And I have the pleasure of being joined by the CEO of PourMyBev. And I want to clarify this, Josh Goodman, everybody. It is PourMyBev, and I understand, you used to go by PourMyBeer, and it's still very, very well known as that moniker as well. Why the change?
Yeah, it's tough. I guess you could, as a Prince reference, we're the artist formerly known as Prince,
Sure.
But it actually spawns from two things. One, we sold 25% of our company to Coca-Cola. They don't sell beer. I don't know, or maybe they do in other parts of the world. But
yeah.
so that was part of it. But also when the pandemic hit, which was awful. Don't want to send anybody into any state of panic right now. But when the pandemic happened, all of our customers shut down. And the question we asked ourselves is, what could we do now that we could never do when all of our customers are open and active? And the overwhelming, I would say, response came, let's build a cloud database that connects all of our taps to a central database that we wanted to call the BKG, like an EKG for your heart, but B for beverage. And when we did that, the overwhelming results showed that beer was not our number one seller as a PourMyBeer company. It was actually margaritas, Moscow mules, espresso martinis. And it's like, it's blasphemous to call ourselves PourMyBeer when the number one selling product is not beer, you know?
That makes a whole lot of sense in that regard. So, I mean, you're pouring beverages in general as well. I know you have systems that pour, cold brew coffee and pretty much anything that can be poured through a tap, right? What got you into the world of, self-pour technology, not self-pour beer technology, but self-pour technology, and specifically getting you within the hospitality industry in general?
Yeah, it was one of those, I guess, ignorance is bliss or whatever you want to call it. When I jumped into the industry, I did have experience in hospitality during college. I probably did what a lot of people did when they said you need experience to get a job as a server. I had my college roommate, pose as my ex-manager and validate that I was a very good server at a place called Gingerbread Man at Shippensburg University. And that got me my first gig in hospitality. So I started out as a bar back and a server at Bottoms Up Pizza in Richmond, Virginia. And I loved it. I mean, anyone that's worked in hospitality, like just the I don't know, the grind, the teamwork, the feeling of, wow, that was an impactful, 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever your shift is. And I loved it. It was great. And that kind of spurred into, not like probably a lot of other college students. I didn't really know. I thought every job you had was just whatever your hourly rate was times the amount of hours you worked. So serving kind of opened up my mind to, wow, I could make $200 in a night if I charm these people at the table, if I, upsell them on drinks or something. And then, parlaying that into sales, very similar. If you do an amazing job at selling something, the reward is you sold it and you make a little bit more than someone who doesn't sell it. So that, I would say, is what took me into my professional career, into my mid to late 20s. Towards the end of my 20s, I got it. I'm giving you kind of the longer version, not the full abridged book version, which tapped the big idea for anyone that wants a copy. I worked in a corporate sales environment, and I brought in this very large account that was going to pay me, a very large commission in the $200,000 range. the CEO decided to say this was not we're going to pay you a quarter of what that amount is. And I just felt like taken advantage of. I felt just, I don't know, it was one of those, I started playing Madden nonstop and skipping work, and just, you know, it was traumatic for a guy in his 20s that did work really hard and then just get the rug pulled out from under him. And that led me to start reading about entrepreneurship. And one of the key themes in entrepreneurship is, you know, find a problem, create a solution, voila, you have a business. And the problem I kept running into, not that I was going to bars a lot, but the problem I kept seeing was I'd go to bars with some friends and we couldn't get a drink. It would take 20 minutes sometimes to just get our first round of drinks. And, you know, I had said something kind of just in passing. I was like, man, like they should have just let us pour our own beers. Like we'd spend twice as much, maybe 3 times as much if they let us. And one of my friends was like, yeah, that'd be a good business. And like the light bulb went off. I was like, I'm going to see you guys later. I'm going home. I'm going to write a business plan for that. And that was the beginning of, I would say, PourMyBeer. I left. It wasn't an overnight thing. I left the bar. This was in 2008. And again, I don't have a coding background. I'm not an engineer. You know, I was, again, didn't know what I didn't know. But what I did know is I needed to learn the beverage industry. And at that time in the Baltimore area, there was only really one company that was like the king of all beverage companies in the area, and that's AC Beverage. So I went straight to the owner, I guess, and told him, look, I don't want you to hire me. I just want to follow you around and learn how you do what you do and learn everything about how product gets from a keg to a tap and what is the science and art to make that happen, you know, perfectly. So he let me tag along with his install team. I did a few installations. That actually led into him asking if I wanted to do this flow meter project with him down in Top of the Hill Brewery down in Chapel Hill. And I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I said, yeah, I'll do that. And it's funny because I put an invoice together, just literally in Excel, and, you know, put my little logo on there and said, nice. I think it was $1,800. And I just something about sending someone an invoice, the first invoice, and then I actually got paid. And it was just, that's where things kind of kicked off. I was like, all right, I have a business. I've got money coming in, even though it was not, not much money, it was something. But that was kind of where things kicked off.
Yeah, it's like, you know, when you go into a small little shop and you see the dollar bill in a frame behind the cash registers, like this was my first dollar, my first $5, whatever it was, that invoice is got to be the same feel, like that same feeling at a little bit of a grander scale, because you put all this sweat equity into building up not only the company, but also just you as a brand, rather than a company as a brand and what you can actually produce. So that was a fun way of kind of keeping that memory alive. And so fast forward quite a bit, and we see PourMyBev in a lot of different concepts, a lot of different scenarios. And of course, we are really focusing on the food hall space for this conversation as we lead closer and closer to the Future of Food Halls conference in April 15th. So from your vantage point at PourMyBev, what makes beverage service, and you did a lot of, you started off by following, them around to kind of learn that scope from the beginning, but it's been a while. It's been since 2008, as you mentioned, until today into 2026. What makes beverage service in food halls in like multi-use properties fundamentally different from traditional restaurants, hotels, or other, F&B concepts?
Yeah. So one of the I would say benefits to having this business is I get to work with amazing operators. Like some of the operators you'll get to meet at the Future of Food Halls. I mean, this is an absolutely star-studded group of people that GoTab has assembled. And I'm also a fan of that mastermind concept. Like, don't keep these secrets to yourself. Like, share them because it helps everybody. A rising tide raises all boats. But one of the, I think, key elements into us being able to do what we do in food halls and other venues is the connectivity. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. I came to market with a product that allowed people to pour beverages on their own. What I didn't come to market with was an integrated system that worked with point of sale systems. So going back to Richmond, Virginia for our first opening, I was excited. I invited all my friends and family to come to it. It It was called the Circuit. It was in where the Richmond Braves used to play. The feeder team to the Atlanta Braves. And again, this was like a coming of to fruition party. And we all got there, and the line was around the block, which sounds great. But then I just walked to the front of the line because I knew the owner. I was like, Robert, like, what's going on here? He said, it takes like a minute and a half or 2 minutes just to get people in the door, because we have to open it on a point of sales and then open it in your system. And then the same traffic jam happens on the way out. You have to close it on the point of sales and close it on your system. And that's where I was like, okay, I solved the problem. And I refer to this as the hospitality hamburger. So, the bottom bun is checking in, the middle bun and all the condiments or all the things that happen in between, and the top bun is checking out. So we had this amazing meat and condiments, but our buns were terrible. They sucked. They were stale, rotten, killed the whole vibe. And that's where I went like all in on how can we connect to the point of sale side of things. GoTab, I can say is the most seamless integration that we have, which kind of feeds into the whole, food hall experience. One of the things, I'm going to be sharing a lot of data at this, in our panel. But one of the pieces of data that I thought is relevant for this conversation is in a traditional food hall, you have a lot of choices. You can choose, go to this pizza place, like even Malcolm Yard's best pizza. It's called Square. I can't remember the name of it. Rectangle, but it's WRECK.
Yes. Because you get wrecked. Sure.
It's amazing pizza. So if you want pizza, you go here. If you want pho, you go there. If you want, hoagies, you go here. If you want a smash burger, you go there. So you have all these options, which is great. But the anchor in these food halls is our beverage wall. And one of the things that we've seen through just the analytics is the dwell time. So dwell time is like you have people grazing and going back and getting more drinks. So, studying how people interact with our systems and obviously within food halls, we've seen that the first thing they do is they usually come. And in Malcolm Yards, I know that they open the tab as soon as they walk in the door. So now it's almost like you've got this Disneyland guest pass to do whatever you want while you're inside the walls of this area. And more times than none, they'll go and start their journey off with a beverage, and then they'll walk around and see what they want to eat. They'll get something to eat, then they'll get another beverage. And again, that dwell time we've seen. I think I pulled a stat up that I can share with you. It said that the average guest is staying 60 minutes, and they generate 39% of the revenue despite being only 26% of the visitors. So, I mean, these are real numbers that, and we're going to go a lot deeper than that, in the Future of Food Halls meetings, but the data doesn't lie. If you can get people to hang out longer, they're going to spend more. And quite frankly, they're going to have it just makes it a more sticky experience that they're going to want to come back and do again.
I mean, the general idea of it being more than a food court always it really hits home with me. A lot of food halls I've been into, unfortunately, I'll leave these names out of it. It's like you go in and they seem really bustling and what have you, but like they're very disjointed, where it's like it feels like I'm at the mall food court back in the 80s and 90s. And so in that environment, I want to get in and out as fast as possible, because it's like not something I want to avoid. And so what you're talking about really hits home. It's like the ability to feel comfortable in the space and provide an opportunity for constant ordering without feeling like you're being impeded to do so. The impeding that I'm talking about is like having to pull out my credit card multiple times to place multiple orders, to have like your original story of having to start my tab and then pour the beer and then close out my tab at the end, and like that whole flow goes into it. You mentioned Malcolm Yards as an example, and we'll see them firsthand, obviously, at the conference because they are hosting the conference itself. But can you think of, or can you share an example of another food hall that's getting it right in that way, where like there is a lot to do, but the flow of connecting the food and the beverage service, whether it be the pour wall, and because Malcolm Yards has a full bar as well, in addition to the pour wall. In addition, you're right. The pour wall is definitely front and center. It's like a centerpiece to the entire venue. But like other examples of food halls that you work with that have that whole flow kind of mastered.
Yeah. So another, I don't know if it's fair to call them a sister business, but Golden Mill, I think, has some of the same design elements as Malcolm Yards. And one of the things that we say is kind of a first and foremost when it comes to self-pour, how to execute it. You gotta separate the two. If you're gonna have a full bar within the same facility, it's got to be completely on the other side of the venue, because you don't want people confused. And what both of these venues have done amazingly is, as soon as you walk into Malcolm Yards, as soon as you walk into Golden Mill, the pour wall is right there. It's in your face. You're seeing people use it. I mean, I'd love to hear what someone's thinking as they're walking in, because you're kind of showing them what they're going to be doing without having to tell them. But then you're also forcing them to go through the welcome to Malcolm Yards. Have you ever been here before? Here's how it works. Open a tab. We're going to give you a wristband or a card. And you can go to any food vendor, and that's going to be your access to food. And you can go to the pour wall, and that's going to be your access to beverages. And it just creates that element of freedom, I would say. So you're not having to try to like seek out the bar or find the bar and then wait to like, what do I want to drink? I mean, I think that they've got it set up in a way where, at least with Golden Mill, where they've got all the cocktails closest to the front. And then all the beers are kind of spread out based off of style and, micro versus macro. And it's within, I think, 200 yards of Coors facility where they make Coors Light. So of course they have to have some Coors on tap. And then even like we're doing the project called Westfield Collective, and they actually they saw it's a 2-story food hall. So they put our system on the bottom and they put it on the top. And so when you're looking at the food hall, you see 2 beer walls, one on the top floor, one on the bottom. And I think you've got to just kind of hit it in people's faces. Like, this is who we are. This is how we operate. And I think people appreciate that. They also tend to have someone roaming the wall, like, that's there to help and make sure they have a good experience. Because there's also that idea that, oh, you're just placing someone that could be pouring that beer for them. Well, no, we're just putting them in a different area where they can support the guests to kind of have their own adventure. If they have a pour that doesn't look right, they can interact and say, hey, this is, let me see, maybe there's a burst in the line. Let me make sure you have a good experience. And I mean, even I can't help it, whenever I go visit our customers, if I see someone having a less than great experience, I'm going to interject in there and help them, and not make them feel bad. Like, hey, have you ever poured a beer in your life? I'm going to say, hey, maybe there was something wrong with the line. Would you mind? I'd like to see if I can fix it for you. And then I'll just pour that same beer and it's perfect. Be like, oh, well, maybe it was a burst, but if you just tilt the glass and open it the whole way, it should work well for you next time.
I come from a long experience of working in different breweries. I worked for 4 different brands of breweries throughout my career. And this comes up a lot, like just the full experience of not so much pouring your own beer, but just like learning about the beer, learning about what you're actually ordering, and having that personality, my bartenders, my servers, whatever, be able to communicate and provide that added experience to their guests. And I see this at most of your pour wall locations that I've been to, that almost all of them do bring in a pour wall ambassador, or or like, it's basically a bar back, but with personality. They're able to provide education. They're able to provide, recommendations, more so than any signage could possibly do. And it just adds to the experience. It's not just me going up to the wall. Going up to the wall and pouring my beer is its own experience. I don't want to take anything away from that. It's a great experience. Right. You can't get that, walking into your local watering hole. But being able to actually get something out of it and learn something, and then be able to take that back with you as you leave, takes that to the next level. So I love that. I love that call out that you're talking about, with having that wall ambassador in place, as well as signage. I see signage all the time. Malcolm Yards, everybody will see it as well. Their RFID cards that they use to tap everywhere, they have instructions on the back printed on the cards of how to pour your beer properly and whatnot. So there's a lot of branding opportunity as well in not only utilizing the cards or the wristbands, but also signage as well as, physical ambassadors at the wall. So I like that.
Yeah. And, not to belabor this point, but one of our locations is called District Brew Yards, and it's 4 breweries under one roof. So it's 10 taps at each wall, and it's up in Chicago. And I just love that they actually put someone who's even potentially brewed the beer. So they, if they want to have a conversation around, hey, what ingredients are in this, or, hey, when was this beer made? Oh, it was made 2 days ago. It's one of it's new releases. So there's an element of like, wow, I'm trying something that has never been tried before. Because a lot of good breweries, they experiment, they try new things. And my personal favorite is pistachio cream ale. That's a great combo. If I ever see that anywhere, I'm going to try some of that beer.
Yeah. Man, well, not that she's drinking any beer anyway, but my daughter has a nut allergy, so she will not be trying that one. But pistachio is just one of those flavors that I grew up with loving, and I do not eat enough of it. So now I have to try to find it. So thank you for that. All right, let me close this out too, because as we keep mentioning, Josh, you will be moderating a panel called Pour Walls and Traditional Bar Setups. It's a nice mix because obviously as we said, Malcolm Yards has both, and you already kind of alluded to the idea that, it's smart to keep them separate but equal, if you will. But can you give us a little bit of a preview by giving us a myth about food hall bar setups in general that you're excited to unpack a little bit further?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people on the panel I'm just moderating, not
Sure.
to like downplay my role, but I'm going to bring some of those statistics to the conversation. But I did want to kind of share the power of the panel. Susan Ganter is going to be on that panel. Susan and her family started Gold Mill, from an idea. It was an old factory, and it's just this amazing. She'll share the revenue numbers in person, but they're one of our top accounts in the entire country of 600 locations. So you're going to want to hear some of the insights. And again, they're I want to say 6 years into Golden Mill, so they've been through some good and bad, but I mean every year they keep growing. I mean, I think they're up 20% year over year from last year to this year just in beverage. I don't have access to their food numbers, but she's going to be sharing some of those things that they've changed over the years, because like any good business, you're always tweaking and you're always improving systems, product processes, things like that. And then Nick Freshman is also going to be on this panel. Look, I got to play golf with Nick, great guy. He owns a food hall consulting business as well. But he was one of the early, I would say, pioneers with Five Guys. I think one of the first franchises for Five Guys. So as you can imagine, not a bad.
Yeah,
say first franchise to open if you're gonna be involved in one. And then he's also involved with a bunch of other concepts in the DC area. So I think it's just from a quality of people that you're going to get to hear from, that I can't speak more highly about the. Oh, and then JP is the COO for Malcolm Yards, so don't want to leave him out. I mean, that guy. The systems they have there, I think. That's what blows me away about, like the difference. And I can walk into any place now, and I can tell within a few minutes whether that place is being run properly or not.
Sure.
And I think it's just being willing to learn from these, people that are executing at a high level, and also realizing they're no different than anybody else. They've applied systems that they know work, and they just keep driving those systems home. But I guess going back to the original question of some of the trends, I can't speak as much on I mean, we've done the case studies. Like we actually have a case study if anyone wants it. It's on our website, but where we took the Malcolm Yards traditional bar versus our self-pour wall, and we outperformed it by 4x with a quarter of the employees. So just in that kind of case study alone, like I honestly didn't know it was going to be that dramatic.
Sure.
When we did the case study, but then when the numbers came out, it was compelling information.
Yeah, the one thing I'm looking forward to hearing more about, especially from your panel, is the idea that, I guess the myth of, well, if I have to pour my own beer, like, I want somebody else to do it for me. It's like, this is more self-service than I really want. And from my experience, I'm going to steal this phrase from somebody, and I apologize for not being able to give them credit because I can't remember who it was, but I heard somebody say, self-service is not no service. Like, self-service, it just allows you to reallocate where that service comes from into a different part of the experience. So hopefully you guys will touch on that a little bit as well. It's the idea of self-service as being part of the experience rather than it being a labor, removal. It's a labor reallocation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's having fun with it too. One of the things you'll see is, at some of our locations that are doing cocktails, they're pre-rimming the cocktail glasses. If it's a margarita, it's got a pre-done rim of sugar or a pre-done rim of salt. It's clearly marked. If you want espresso martinis, they can do those with a little chocolate rim. Like, you make it fun. Or you throw a nitrogen tap on the espresso martini, and now you've got like a cascading Guinness looking espresso martini. So again, you're able to elevate the beverage and the experience without having to have every single person that walks in your facility be trained to be a cicerone. It's ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, this has been a pleasure. If there's any other kind of like parting words that you want to instill here to get everybody pumped for not only your panel but for the whole conference in general, this is the right time.
Yeah. So again, not to plug my book, but tapthebigidea.com. One of the things I say in the very first chapter of the book, or not even chapter, the intro, is one of my favorite cities to ever visit, Minneapolis in April. I mean, if you've never been, that in itself is a reason to get to this conference, because it's in the heart of Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis. And imagine people being, they've been quarantined for the most part in their boroughs, staying away from the minus 20-degree weather. And this is the spring. The happiest place on earth. They're better than Disney. It is the happiest place on earth in Minneapolis in April.
Minneapolis is wonderful. The only time I've ever visited Minneapolis was in April, and it was a perfect opportunity, perfect time. And as a baseball fan, I will give a shout out. Target Field is quite nice.
Yes.
And as a New England native, the Red Sox will be in town. Just saying. I'll be looking forward to maybe sneaking away for a couple innings at some point or another. But Josh, thank you so much. Again, Future of Food Halls tickets are pretty close to selling out from the last numbers I looked at. So if you're listening to this and you're interested, go check it out, futurefoodhalls.com. You can learn more about Josh and what he has to offer over at PourMyBev.com. And of course, if you're listening to this, you probably are already aware of GoTab. Go to GoTab.com for more information. And we will see you in Minneapolis. Thanks, Josh.